police don't protect you. The government doesn't serve you. Change isn't made in a ballot box. You better get together with the people in your neighborhood and learn how to save yourselves.
Welcome, lovers to haters. I am Aly.
And I am Jim. And I'm a man.
Boo! Fuck men! For those of you who aren't watching the video version, we were wearing our little anonymous masks that Jim bought for our skit that we did, our devised play that we did at an open stage recently.
Yes.
And we said, fuck men, because I am riled up about men manipulating women through various means, namely being like, oh, I have ADHD, I can't remember things, I'm just a little guy. And then they're, I won't use any specific details, but they are very aware of the fact that they are putting women in uncomfortable situations.
And it really doesn't matter if you're a leftist man. There's so many guys who do this left, right, center, all around the world.
Yes.
I don't think most of us men are very trustworthy at all. And I don't have much tolerance for it.
Nope. And I'm done instantly giving the benefit of the doubt to men. And I'm annoyed at having been raised to give the benefit of the doubt to men. Like, I was specifically fantasizing about, like, telling a man to fuck off when I'm down in Oklahoma because there's a lot more catcalling that happens there. And, like, me, like, being with my parents or something, and my dad being like, oh, hey, Aly, like, do you think that was the right thing to do? Not him necessarily judging, but being like, was that the balanced way, you know? I mean, like, I don't care about balance. I've been in so many situations in my life where men could have raped or killed me, and my behavior isn't the thing to change there. And I am in no way saying that, people should be mean to men, and then that is the thing that will prevent bad things from happening. But maybe be mean to men anyway.
You don't have to protect men and their feelings and their egos.
Yeah.
Or have low expectations for men, even if we really do have low expectations. Because
low.
One of my sayings is, there isn't an expectation so low that a man won't go underneath those expectations.
They will tunnel under that thing. They'll be like Cosmo finding a way to break out of the door when it's barely open. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are so many ways. So some men are catcallers. That's the most overt way that's easy to see. Mm-hmm. A lot of men, like you mentioned, are emotional manipulators and use all kinds of
pretend to be a feminist, pretend to want justice for everyone, but they're just talking the talk. They're ready to cheat on their wives. They're ready to, trick people into dating them.
Yeah, and whether it's conscious or not conscious really doesn't matter, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm. Become more conscious.
Yeah, be more aware of yourself.
Yeah.
Be more aware of your privilege. We have a whole episode where you and I talk about how we navigated that.
Yes.
In our relationship.
Yes.
Relationship.
That's one that I want to revisit personally, because I have people still ask me all the time, so what's the deal with your and Jim's relationship? Like, wink, wink. Is there something going on? And I'm like, no. We're very clear and upfront about everything.
Right.
With everyone.
And we
have no secrets.
We've talked about the power dynamics, age, gender, money. Those are the ones that really come up that can come up between us, and we've navigated what all of those things mean and don't mean, and we don't pretend that they don't exist. They really do exist. I am male, you aren't male. I have more money than you. I have a lot more privilege, and my age gives me some privilege. My official education gives me some privilege. So there's all kinds of ways I am more privileged and could have used that in a certain way, or there could have been manipulation either way, right?
Yes.
Like if I weren't stronger in myself, that gets used by the person on the other side of the
like,
power
take
dynamic.
me out for food all the time. Give me all your money.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we both see each other for who they are. We choose to be in each other's lives. And I'm ready to punch a little bitch-ass man in the face. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today.
There is a whole other episode where we talk about that. And you always tease me for bringing up all the other episodes. But that one
needs to be brought up.
Good. It's a portion of an episode, but I think
the fact that is not happening anywhere, that people are really not talking about power dynamics in their relationships, is it's a standout thing that we have that episode, because I don't see that very commonly. Right.
It's like we say men and women are equal. Just so we say blacks and whites are equal. And we know in our society that
ain't true.
Never been the case.
No.
It should be the case. Mm-hmm. We know that there are no actual differences based on race, based on gender. Mm-hmm. But we know in our society that has not been the case, and that isn't actually the case. So people need to own their privilege.
Yeah, men, you don't get to absolve yourself from potentially causing harm by being like, oh, well, I'm a good man. I don't need to think about that. The same way I can't absolve myself from potential harm by saying, oh, I'm a good white person. I don't need to think about that. We all need to be thinking about these things. But what we're going to be thinking about today is...
I really could go on about this.
I know. Some existential topics, trigger warning for suicide. We will be discussing, my past. We've brought this up at varying times as well, my past suicidality, but I have some new thoughts on it. I have some hopefully enlightening feelings that will resonate with people and help you to not feel alone, or can be joyous for you if you're also in this similar place of having, dare I say, knock on wood, come to the other side. Mm-hmm. And I have just been recontextualizing, but very deeply validating my experience recently with past suicidality, and also, ongoing conversations with folks about that topic. But before we get into that, we're going to have a little bit of joy, because the joy coincides with the suffering. Mm-hmm. It is all happening. Mm-hmm. We can hold it all.
Yeah. Well, the full range of life is beautiful. Whether you're sad, happy, angry, it's all legit. It's all the range of experience. And the more that we can hold, the less that we impose how you're supposed to be. The idea that someone needs fixing because they're sad, angry, hurt, upset. Mm-hmm. I don't think they need fixing. So we have room for all of it, including our joy. That's, I guess.
And you know what makes room for the joy? Giving yourself that deep personal acceptance to be how you are. Mm-hmm. Once I actually stopped shaming myself for feeling the ways that I felt and thinking that was bad, thinking I had to cram a million self-help books down my throat and change my behavior and forcibly make myself feel something that wasn't authentic to myself, that's how I created space for the immense joy that I'm feeling now.
Yeah, and I think we as a society can also help create support for that. Mm-hmm. We can't make someone love themselves, but we can make it a lot easier too. So there's both a social dynamic and an interpersonal dynamic, and I think that's great. And so we will look at the agony and ecstasy of life here.
Yeah, I feel some deja vu happening, but also I would like to put a disclaimer for myself that I may not have perfectly clear language in this episode when I'm talking about the things that are very, very deep and near to almost a realm where words can't be relevant anymore. I'm going to attempt to speak about things that I really don't have language for, mm-hmm. and I actually don't even want specific language for. I will share my heart in ways that can only be felt. And if you don't feel it, that's okay. But sometimes I'll be more clear than others. And this is an episode where you might have to puzzle about what it is.
Well, I think it's a challenge for people who have a narrow idea of how to analyze. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, when they analyze, they listen to the words, they listen to the premises, they listen to how those premises fit together, like we're taught in a logic class. But actually, we can analyze and hear each other in a lot of different ways. So when you say something, I mean, I hope I understand you when you're talking, but when you say something from the heart, and the words may or may not fit that logical sequence structure, that doesn't mean there isn't a coherence to what you're saying.
Yes, we can fill in information.
You can hear also on a different level. You can hear the fullness, just like we're talking about a full range of emotions that we're bringing. When we say any word, there's many levels to what we're saying. There's an emotion behind my word. There's a relationship between us. There's an assumption about what our average listener, whoever we perceive that to be is, whoever the actual listener actually is, how they're coming at us. And all of these different levels can be heard. So through the tone of your voice, the rise and fall of your volume.
If you've ever had a conversation with someone who didn't speak the same language as you, or couldn't hear, or couldn't see, how do you, those of us who have had that experience, you get through it somehow. Mm-hmm. It may be awkward. Mm-hmm. You may feel a little weird. The other person may feel a little weird, but you get through it. I think we have so much more of a capacity to communicate with each other than we're even aware of.
Absolutely. If we just practice it. If we don't just preference certain ways of hearing each other. Just as we shouldn't preference certain ways of being in the world.
Amen. Hallelujah. Ooh. So, Jim.
I was just going to say, the literal analyst would say, did she just make a Judeo-Christian religious reference there? And those who know her know, no, but it was a spiritual kind of reference.
Listen, honey, I'm reclaiming your bullshit Christian language, and I'm using it in my way. Jim.
Yes.
Where did you feel the joy of your birthday week in your body?
Well, where did I feel it in my body? Should I set this up with words?
You can pick a specific instance or just a general feeling. What did it evoke for you?
Well, I just turned 50 on October 10th. Today that we are, what is the date today?
It's the 20th.
20th. So it's 10 days later, but October 8th I had a party. So it's been sort of a process of celebration for turning 50.
We love process.
Which I'm not that excited about turning 50, but I still wanted to not have it be a negative.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't make a joke about turning 40 or something.
Our friend Lily says, I always thought you were perpetually 40.
Time doesn't continue on.
I was like, oh, I used to be younger than that.
What?
But where did I feel it in my body is your question. Most feel it in my body. What was your question exactly?
What was your experience of feeling that joy?
It's going to sound boring, but I really did feel it in my heart. Mm. I felt if hearts
That's not boring. We live to feel things in our heart.
If hearts could have facial expressions, it felt like, when I smile, my cheeks start hurting in a certain way. It's like they feel stretched out. My heart felt stretched out as though it was smiling. Mm. As though the cheeks were stretched out. My heart as a muscle felt that happy feeling stretched out. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
How's that for a worded metaphor?
So good. It made me think of the Grinch and the heart growing 3 times its size.
Mine didn't grow. I already have a big heart.
That's true. You weren't the Grinch. You weren't stealing.
If my heart had grown 3 sizes, it'd be bigger than my penis.
Right. No. Which I'm sure is
as a man,
huge.
It's gotta be. Or it's small to be ironic to be the guy who gets the girls by admitting he has a small, right?
Yeah.
pretty average, honestly, but it's
right answer.
Whatever that is.
Do you feel that you got redemption in your birthday week?
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool. So you're bringing up the Talking Heads.
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't talked about that, I don't think, anywhere in a podcast, have I?
Maybe only briefly, but go ahead.
So the Talking Heads, music band, most were around in the 80s, late 70s, mostly in the 80s. They made a movie called Stop Making Sense that's been recently re-released. Not an endorsement to go see it, by the way. Nice try, capitalists. But we did pay to see it.
Of course we did.
But back in so there is an essay where I have written about this that's on our Bozeman Antifa Dance. And this is the bad podcast.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's going to be on the intro.
That shows my mental space
so
already.
good.
But BozemanAntifaDance.org is where you can read that essay along with a million others.
Right. In the essay, I talk about how in 2000, I think I wrote 2006. It was actually 2007. I got the year wrong.
Gosh.
Maybe the essay's right, but somewhat. No, it was a story on Instagram that I got the year wrong. But it was 2007 because it was the year my son was born, 16 years ago. And there was the American Film Institute shows old classic movies, and they were doing an outdoor showing on a big screen of Stop Making Sense. And they closed the road, so you actually sat out in the street. And they had all these, movie theater. And I'm sitting there with my partner at the time and our friends. And off to the side, kind of in the back, there was this big dance party going on. And what really got me was this old guy just going full out in this circle of mostly younger women, but there was all ages there. But he was just having the time of his life, and he's dancing, and everybody's dancing, and it's this big circle, and people are going in and out of the circle, and it was incredible. And I'm watching this going, wow, that would be so fun, but I don't dance. And that's fine, right? You could have that feeling, but I felt like I was a failure. I felt I had failed. Like there was actually something in me that should have been dancing.
Yes.
And I wasn't. And I didn't feel the courage to do it. And it, not something that then said the next day I went out and danced. It just sort of sat with me for years until I did start dancing. About 3 or 4 years later, I really started getting involved with five rhythms dancing.
And I, of course, can't picture you ever
not dancing.
But I think that part of you was in there, perhaps lying dormant.
Oh, for sure. If you read some of my I studied philosophy. I wrote a lot of philosophy. If you read some of the things I would talk about dance metaphorically, how our ideas must dance, how the way we talk to each other must dance. Everything had this dance metaphor, but I myself rarely ever danced. I think I went to a club once in those DC years, and I did dance then, and I danced out. Did I even dance at, did we even have music to dance to at my wedding? We did. We had some jazz music. I think I danced there. But I danced at someone else's wedding. So I did some dancing at the places people were supposed to dance, and not very often. I dance on my own at home. I danced in front of mirrors. I danced all the time. But I felt still this failing. This movie is re-released, and it happened to be the same night as an improv class, and I don't miss improv classes, but this was Stop Making Sense. I felt like I had to go see it. Yeah. I was like, hey, Aly, let's go see this movie, and let's go dance. And she's like, of course. And so we were going to go dance. And I was like, they're showing at this place called the Ellen Theater, which is kind of a traditional stage. They do a lot of plays there.
Not an endorsement, even though I have performed there.
So
in a way that I was asked to perform, not in a way that we performed.
So yeah, the Ellen is a place that it's not really a movie theater. It's more of a play theater, and there's not place really to dance unless you were going to be blocking the movie from the stage itself. And so I was like, how are we going to do this exactly? I was like, we're going to do it one way or another, but how are we going to do it? And I was like, I should ask the Bozeman Film Society who's putting this on, where could we dance? I don't want to get in people's way. I'm not an ass. You know, I don't want to just dance so that people can't see the movie. And Aly was like, no, they're not gonna, don't even write. They're not going to even.
I was being a pessimist.
And so I wrote, and within minutes,
I get a phone call
Go ahead.
saying, hello, is this Alyssa? And I'm like, yes, it is. And this woman's like, there's been a change, and we've decided to move the first 3 rows of the theater back for the showing of Stop Making Sense so that there can be a dance floor. And I said, well, I'm willing to bet that my friend Jem is the reason that you have made this change. And she says, oh, yes, it's going to be such a wonderful time.
So they cleared out 3 rows of seats of tickets they could have sold. They didn't sell because they thought it's a great idea that there should be dancing at this.
And then
we
eventually, after it's just the 2 of us dancing for a couple songs, slow trickle of a few more bodies, an older couple, a couple younger people.
Then our friend Clara. Hi, Clara.
Clara! Oh, so much love for Clara. Wow. My heart just stretched.
Whom we just have met also in this birthday week.
Yes.
Really.
What a blessing. The one good thing to ever happen on Nextdoor.com.
In fact, from me writing about the Talking Heads and the influence on me as a dancer, she read the essay on Nextdoor.
Take that, past selves who thought we would never meet anyone.
I invited her to a birthday party. She brought a friend.
Yeah.
And we have been hanging out with Clara a lot.
That was one of the highlights of my week. But we eventually got a wonderful, weird dance party up front in the LN.
It was packed. All 3 rows were, the whole floor was packed of people.
And people were inspired to move particularly weirdly because they're watching David Byrne. They're watching his backup dancers who were doing all these weird things. We were doing weird things. It was permission to unleash the freak.
Yes. Same as it ever was.
Little knee thing.
Yeah. David Byrne was certainly influential in the way I wanted to be able to dance. Even as a kid, I would be like, I'd see him and I go, well, that's how I want to dance. And people would be listening to whatever the dance music was of the late 80s, early 90s, and they didn't dance that way. They just sort of, like bop along and listen to the kind of 90s club music. And I was like, but I want to dance like weird, running and doing all the stuff that David Byrne would do.
Dance with your lamp, as you said.
Dance with the lamp. I used to dance with the lamp like he does in the one song.
That's awesome.
So he definitely was influential on what I thought was possible. I think I was already like that, but it sort of felt like permission in a way.
Yeah.
And so he gave a whole group of people permission to be weird.
We need to bring permission to these places, to spaces, to the world.
Yeah. And so it did feel like redemption. That not only did I dance to Stop Making Sense, where I felt like a failure, but I had helped spark space for others to dance, and then us dancing clearly helped also set the stage.
That could not have happened without you. Not that you're taking credit for it.
Yeah. Probably not.
But that's just an example of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And what we create when we just are ourselves. Yeah.
And also, it was me trying to be mindful of a community. I don't want to, I can be all for militant direct action, but I'm not for being an ass. I'm not for being an asshole.
Mm-hmm. I think we would have been fine in, a far aisle,
gone to the
but
side.
that would have been just not fun. So you had an idea to make it a lot better for everybody.
Right, because the vision was, and then when I was reading, the vision was for people to dance, but when I was reading about the band has now been doing a lot of interviews, and they said whenever we were playing, a dance party would break out. Our music turned out to be very more dancey than we had ever thought it was, and it was dancing everywhere, and it was wonderful, and it added to the spirit and their joy of doing the tour that they did. And so it was wonderful. It felt like we were at the front of a concert. Happened 40 years ago, but it felt like that because there was a stage there. So it's almost like you're screaming for an encore.
Yeah. There was an awesome little girl there. Everyone was having a good time.
Yeah, they were children and, again, people of all ages.
Yeah.
It's Bozeman, so there's not a lot of racial diversity.
Bozeman.
There was a little bit of racial diversity.
And what are some other highlights?
Oh, let's talk about Friday. I mean, there was my birthday party, which was beautiful, and we had this lovely. My birthday had to have dance. It had to have improv.
And intentional conversation.
That was an important...
People are talking about the intentional conversation.
Right. Past episodes, I've talked about doing intimacy workshops with my ex and how that's important to me, how Tantra is important to me. And one of the concepts is this idea of sacred space, intentional conversation. And sacred space, I guess, is a general idea people think of as just setting up an altar in a beautiful space. But in the school of Tantra, I study sacred space is that space plus people coming together to communicate in that intentional way. Mm-hmm. And there's a ceremony that I was taught, and we didn't do the ceremony, but we did a few pieces of the ceremony. But the idea was to get the people at my party not just informally talking. There was going to be plenty of that. That was, most of the time, was not structured.
We created a container for it.
But created a container. And part of my thinking is, there are some people who hate that. They hate the
like
container.
Your ex, it was there.
We don't have to talk about that. She is able to set her own boundaries, and she did. So
absolutely, but it was just funny how there were a wide range.
And not
opinions.
The ex I did intimacy workshops with.
Different.
Yeah, I have a lot of exes. Because I'm a man. I fucked over a lot of women in my life.
Around.
Yeah. It's a little more. It's not quite that, but this was are also our sons. So my ex and
not mine and Jim's son.
No,
for those who are confused.
And I'm not having any more sons. I have had a vasectomy.
Thank God.
Trying to do my part as a man.
Yeah,
I'm a good man.
Cut that thing off, fellas.
Not that good.
Inside, don't cut off your dick. No need to do that.
I'm not going to judge.
I mean, yes, if you want to get a sex reassignment surgery, but I was thinking about a cult that made people cut their dicks off.
No enforcement of any of this stuff, okay? Anyway, we did intentional conversation, which just means that we sat and we had some structured questions. And even though some people do hate that, some people, like me, don't thrive well in a party situation where I don't really
free for all.
Where I don't really know what to say.
Yeah.
I did at this one because it was my party. But a lot of times I'll go to a party and feel very uncomfortable and awkward, and actually would value if there was a little structure where I knew how I could plug in or fit in or talk to people I don't know. I'm not very good at just asking. Other people are so good at that. And so they're like, why would you do this? It's so easy. You just go talk to people. I wanted a space where both could thrive, where there was a space. And even though people are informal, a lot of times they don't really get to the heart of anything. And I want spaces where people have that opportunity to share their hearts and hear the hearts of others. Mm-hmm. And we did have a beautiful conversation, and apparently was pretty influential on some of the people who attended in a positive way.
It was. I'm still hearing comments about it.
I know, and I do it so often that it's like sucking nature to me.
Sucking nipples?
Sucking nipples to me. That used to be second nature as well. But I've not been a baby for a very long time.
I thought you meant when you were in a relationship.
Probably then too, but no. Need to kiss and tell. Anyhow.
Friday. We're moving on because I'm the timekeeper.
Go ahead. Talk about Friday.
You were going to talk about Friday. I was just reminding you to talk
But Friday was both of our
experiences,
And-
yeah. So we had an open stage night, which was another container, but specifically with the offering for people to bring art to share with a small group, admittedly, but a very active group, a very connected and participatory group who was very supportive of what everyone shared. To the point where people were like, oh, I want to read this poem that I wasn't planning on reading it, or I want to do this, or I want to do improv suddenly. And
sing a song.
Yeah, I sang a song that was vulnerable to me that I wasn't thinking I would share if more people came, because I was like, oh, it has to be good for more people to see it, which is a fallacy. I probably would have sung the song anyway, but I was more nervous to sing it in front of people who I wanted to impress with this idea. Like, look at us, we're doing something, and also we're good at it. It's this pressure of performing,
Mm-hmm.
But it was more gifting performances than it was putting on a performance, because it felt like truly a gift to see what everyone had brought and prepared. And, to hear Jim's poetry, to hear our lovely friend Kiki's poem that she wrote, to hear poems that meant a lot to our friend Phaedra, as well as
Let's talk about Phaedra, because this is Phaedra's space.
Let's talk about Phaedra.
And partially her vision that just happened to align with our vision.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is her vision.
It's a skate ramp that we were performing on, but Phaedra could see that this could be just as well a performance stage.
Mm-hmm.
It has a very supportive partner,
Mm-hmm.
happens to be a man.
Kill him! Just kidding.
Kill him.
No, we like him, and they're different ideas. Like, he's a very skate and athletic centered guy, and she's a very theater centered person. But
they support each other.
They married their ideas, and they want to do that even more. They want people to be skating in the background while people sing.
Yeah, and Brian builds a fire for us, and he's so happily there, taking in everybody's shares.
Yeah.
On this probably a hallowed ground for a skater, a skate ramp being used in this other way.
Yeah, he's like, tap dance on the ramp.
Yeah, I know.
Have dance parties on the ramp. Him and Phaedra do dance on the ramp in the night together.
And they've lit it up, and it was freezing outside, but it felt so warm connecting with people and sharing. And her idea was, we want a space where people can play at performance, not necessarily be the most amazing performers, whatever that means, but be able to be there with each other, for each other, and expressing, being fully yourself and being playful. And of course, that's exactly what we've been talking about in a lot of our recent episodes. So we've made this great friend that you've done acting with at the Verge Theater, not an endorsement for the Verge.
And who I'll talk about later in my segment.
Yeah. So
my death segment.
We're very thankful for this and for that space. And Phaedra also was at the party and was influenced by the intentional conversation and wanted to bring that spirit of community also into the Friday space.
And we're probably going to have a sacred space with her.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Yeah. Friday was just incredibly beautiful. I shared a poem of a person who was my best friend for a long time before things got kind of complicated between us.
As they do.
As they do. But she has just published a book of poems. And I read one of her poems there. And her poem and her handle on her email, which I'm not going to share, is very similar to it came from a poem that was shared by someone else. There were a lot of these synchronicities going on.
Yes.
And my friend Julie was very happy that her poem was read and very happy to be part of the magic and the connection of the night. And it just really overwhelmed me with emotion to have all of these beautiful people, but also connections to my past and the nostalgia, and doing something that I truly believe in.
Yeah.
This this free and open staging that doesn't have to come from an elite class, but from us, from whatever we're motivated to do.
It filled me with a really honest sense that we're going to connect more and love more than we can even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I only have like thoughts of the future that are dark and dismal and horrible. But I was like, wow, the opportunities for synchronistic events to occur, the miraculous unknown that we can step into with people that we do know.
Mm-hmm.
Having people that you know is kind of the balm and the salve for the sting of, despair and shitty men and missed connections. And it helps create the conditions in which connection can flow, in which this can be the actual state of our lives rather than a rare event.
Mm-hmm. Right. This should be our norm.
Yes, it
the
should
feelings of joy and bliss should be our norm. And if when allowed to do it, when we give ourselves permission to do it, we realize there's a society that doesn't always let it. But when we can find it, we see what's possible. And when you get a taste of what's possible, how do you not want that to expand, not just in your own life, but for the lives of everyone else? At least make it available. Obviously, you can't force people into joy, but if you can create the conditions and the space and the opportunities and the invitations for that.
And Phaedra told me, and I know she would be okay with me sharing this, that after that night, her regularly very creative and quick mind was whirring with even more ideas. And she was just filled with this desire to create more and to play and to just have fun. And she was like, that set off this chain reaction in me to have all of these other desires.
Mm-hmm.
If a little bit of permission is given and the receiver feels safe, then who knows what could happen? It's dangerous. It's dangerous to the status quo what could happen if people are given permission in a domino effect that suits them, that they want.
And that's why, I mean, even during our thing, we had this beautiful interpretive dancing at the end. No sooner we leave that we get a text from Phaedra that someone had called the cops for noise, even though it wasn't particularly loud. And it wasn't even late. We were done by 10 o'clock.
We were the most calm party
I couldn't even
that night.
hear half the things coming from the stage feet from me.
No. The cops got called on a poetic art night with 5-ish people.
Where apparently there's a garage band that plays late. Fine. I'm glad. I mean, I wouldn't want to stop it, but if the neighbors if the neighbors really were concerned by whatever sounds they were hearing, why not come talk about it? Why rat out your neighbor? Yeah.
Come over.
Come over.
See the face of the person that you're about to hand off to a third party.
Right. But it reminds me, we were kicked out of a mall for dancing with headphones on, with no music playing, not taking up very much space at all, doing something different, changing it. If at that level, that's already too dangerous, imagine how much more dangerous it is if everybody feels free, has that taste of freedom, and does not want to put up with all the things that keep us from that. I have a feeling some in authority are fully aware of the danger and are like, no, this is bad for business.
I feel us getting too large energetically for the container of capitalism.
I hope so.
I feel it. We have to move on because I'm the timekeeper.
Yeah, okay.
And this is just your semi-annual, every couple of years reminder that Sidewinders sucks.
What is Sidewinders?
a fascist regime. It's a restaurant that was supposedly voted best restaurant in Bozeman in 2023. And I don't know how that happened. Some suspicious activity is at play, or just really shitty people only voting for this thing. There's not that many good restaurants in Bozeman, but Sidewinders is definitely not the best. And they treat their workers horribly. I hear more and more stories all the time of how Joe Rice has
the owner of Sidewinders and several other restaurants in both Bozeman, Montana, and in Jackson, Wyoming.
Yeah, and now he's going into real estate in Bozeman, as if we needed more gentrified luxury real estate agents.
We will I'm going to put the anti-ad in, so
put it in.
Listen to it, and when we come back, which will be seconds for us, well, I'll assume they've heard the anti-ad.
Fuck men, but fuck this man especially.
Bozeman Antifa Dance and Theater Collective presents Anti-Ads. This is not a real ad.
Have you heard? Sidewinders in Bozeman is hiring. We would love to have you join our team of food service professionals. But before you join our team, let me share some of what you might expect. Hey girls, yes ladies, I'm talking to you. Have you ever wanted to be raped by a coworker? Well, Sidewinders is just the place for you. Yes, one of our very own employees was raped by a colleague, and she even had the double benefit of being kept from working her shifts when our heroic management sided with her accuser and had his restraining order reversed. This meant he could keep serving you overpriced pretzels while she couldn't work at all. Glorious unpaid time off benefit. And that brings me to you fellows. Dudes, we have your back when you rape your colleagues. Isn't that a great benefit that few other places offer? At Sidewinders, we also cater to professionals who enjoy being slut-shamed in the very outfits we provide for you. Hoorah! We are so blessed that Joe Rice and his blue-collar restaurant group provide such an unstable environment so you can grow stronger from your trauma. So, what are you waiting for? Come join our team.
Hoorah! Okay, what's next?
Upending my heart in a beautiful way.
All right.
In an erotic way.
Sounds great. So you have a story.
I guess. There's so many stories in one story, but I'm taking an online course that I also won't do an ad for, but it's a beautiful course. It's where we, me and about 1,500 other individuals online from across the world, talk about ideas such as post-activism. Do we need to entirely rethink the ways we are approaching social issues? Do we need to entirely rethink the ways we're approaching relationships, art, everything? And we go on beautiful tangents every time. And different people share different philosophical ideas. We break it out into small groups. And we have small groups that we meet with periodically outside of the course altogether. And when we recently had a session this past weekend, it came to light that one of the women in my small group that has met a couple of times had a friend in the course who I hadn't ever heard of or met who ended their life.
Yeah, I know.
In my heart and in my mind, I am saying her name because we had a beautiful session where we were talking about one woman's experience of having her mentor tell her when she was suicidal, say your name. keep saying your name. It was specifically fitting for this woman because her name meant to sing, and she has one of the most gorgeous voices I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. So she was saying, say your name, because your name also means to sing, which is one of the reasons you're here. One of the gifts that you love to give. Remind yourself that you have that. And we spent a long part of this session saying the names of people that we know who had committed suicide. And we spent a long time really thinking and saying this woman's name. Mm-hmm. And it was a beautiful honoring of life. Beautiful poetry was read. Beautiful song. I think a lot of the time when immense grief comes up and there's not words for it, meeting it with song is one of the most beautiful ways, which also can help those who are grieving to move. And we know how important movement is for all things and for processing. But about halfway, I didn't think I would cry during this because I just think about this so much, and you think eventually you're going to be done having tears for it. No, I sit down with Echo and Cosmo, and I just start weeping from reserves of sorrow that I didn't know that I had for a woman that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. But when I saw her face and her picture that they put up, I felt like I knew her, because I felt like I knew how that sorrow looked through my own eyes when I had felt it. And so that caused me to talk on the phone with Phaedra, because she wanted to call me up that day, about how trippy, it's really trippy, is the word that I keep coming back to, even though that sounds like kind of like maybe not the right word, but it is, because it doesn't seem to fit with my current reality, the immense pain that I used to feel daily, constantly, without end. And to have been in that space where there was no or very little, I won't say no, that's the old story talking. There was very little room for the reality that I have now to exist as a possibility then. And so to think about how I left basically no room for this to occur, yet now here I am, that feels like the wildest acid trip you could ever experience. Mm-hmm. And I was just really feeling into that. And I've mentioned to you, as well as a couple of friends recently, that in my journey to also depathologize mental occurrences, I've been thinking about the fact that perhaps my urge to die, and I couldn't have said this to myself at the time or have anyone say this to me, because I would have been like, you're full of shit. But perhaps what it was an urge for something to die in my life that wasn't me. Something needed to metaphorically die. Something needed to change. A lot of things needed to change. And parts of me that weren't me, that I think were inherited, put on me, a label, all of these things I needed to kill. But I did not need to kill myself. And so there's this really interesting space that is held when you hold space for your own story, where something else was able to be true eventually, after literally just staying alive for my dog, literally just staying alive because I didn't want to inconvenience my roommates by having to clean up my body, literally just staying alive because I didn't have the energy to carry out the plan that I did have. And somehow, in little bits and pieces, a whole other reality comes about, while also holding space for those that couldn't be true for.
So how are you able to do that?
By, I think, still applying my anarchist ideas, which is, I am no better or worse than anyone else. Mm-hmm. Just because I am here now and I was able to have a different experience does not mean I am stronger. It doesn't mean I'm more worthy of life. It doesn't mean any of those things. It means, I would say, I am lucky. I am grateful. I was able to find community at a time when it was probably deeply necessary for me. And the fact that others could not speaks to the world that they were born into and nothing about them. Nothing about them. And it is a choice, you know. Talking to another friend, she was like, I really wish we didn't make it so that if you bring up any thoughts of suicide ever, it's instantly, you need to call somebody. You need to get taken somewhere. We have to put these actions on it. Mm-hmm. We have to enforce something. I understand why that's done, because we don't want people to end their lives. We want people to stay around long enough to feel joy. But that's part of the thing that makes you feel like such a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. The shame, the fact that it feels like you can't talk about this stuff without everyone thinking you're crazy or about to hurt yourself or them. You know, there are so many times, I think, when people... there are so many times before an act happens where people want to say something about it. And if they don't, that's not a personal failing. That's something that has been driven and drilled into us that we are not allowed to. Both because it's just seen as, you know, oh, well, you didn't make it in the American dream or whatever construct of the culture you live in. You couldn't do it. You couldn't be a so-called happy person. And it's like, show me a single totally sane person in the world. Show me a totally happy person. Doesn't exist. But we're supposed to pretend that that's what we are. We're not supposed to let the cracks become exposed.
When I think about my own journey with this, very happy person now, lots of depression in my past. When I ask you, how did you do it? It's genuine because I don't know how I did it. I know once I reached a certain point, I know what I did to help, but I don't know what got me out of a bottom place. I also know at my very bottom places, they were the least likely times for me to actually have ended my life because, like you said, that took energy to do that. I didn't have the energy or will to do it then. My most dangerous places were often when I was coming out of depression.
That is when it happens.
And then it would even surprise me at those moments. But it hasn't been true for me for a very long time, and I can't tell you how. I can tell you a few times where I could feel the spiral and how I kept from going spiraling, but I don't think that would have worked earlier in my life. I don't know how. I don't think it was a mental thing, honestly. I honestly think it was strangely dancing more and trusting people to move tissue in my body and things like that, you know, just rewiring my nervous system or something. But so it's like, I don't know how we get out of these things. That it's like, that's why I have so much compassion and no judgment for someone who actually commits the act, because who's to say that that couldn't have been any of us. And now that I'm not there, I don't think I had any. I just feel very fortunate. And now, yes, I have tools now, but those don't help you when you're at the bottom.
Right. And even if you could come up with a detailed list of how you didn't do it, that list wouldn't work for anyone else, probably.
Probably not.
Because we are so individual and we want to prize the individuality of people rather than giving them a one-size-fits-all routine or formula. And so for me, did I do it? I don't know. I don't want to even remain in that hyper individualized language because I don't think I did save myself.
It's almost a lot. giving up the idea of control in a weird way is not that it's a guarantee that it'll help, but it is creates a space once you no longer believe that you're someone who needs fixing, like you said, your anarchist ideals. Once somehow that message comes through to your body that you don't actually need fixing, that you are already what you are, and you stop trying to create certain outcomes or put so much on those outcomes. Of course, you're going to try to create outcomes for yourself, but you put so much on making the thing happen.
Yeah.
Then you start coming out of it, but that initial sinking in, I have no idea. I have none.
It's also heard. All I can say is that I had a rather mystical experience where at one of my lowest lows, I saw sort of visions of myself in my mind and felt that I felt that I was holding my own hand within myself at a very low point. And it was, I would classify it as one of the spiritual experiences in my life. And I give no explanation to what that is or was. But that happened. That was a doorway or a portal, if you will. And after that, it was still holding on for a long time. Even though I'm the timekeeper of today's episode, I have a hard time conceptualizing of time. I think I had that moment when I was 22. And I know when I was 23, I went to Italy, which was another huge point in my life where I got off a plane, lost my bags, didn't know where I was, couldn't find my Airbnb, spoke shitty Italian that I had learned in a few weeks. And I sat down at a bench and thought, I'm so glad I stayed alive for this. So the portal opened. I had confirmation that I had done something that seemed good.
Yeah, then we become close friends not that long after all of that.
Not that long after, but Leah inviting me to the ecstatic dance class is what first allowed for me to discover my dormant love for dance and also meet you. But me discovering dance happened first.
Right.
Which is very important. And that was the only thing that I got out of bed for months besides my job. Every single day I would come home from my job and cry and lay in bed and binge watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer because I always had a depression show. It was Buffy the Vampire Slayer at that time, which was actually very fitting and good because the way it depicts mental health at one point in the series is very apt and very meaningful to me. But I only got out of bed to work because I had to and to go to this ecstatic dance class. And the radiance that it brought out in me, I almost said the radiance that it gave me, but it brought it out in me because it had to be there first to come out, was foreign to my body. I was like, what the fuck is this? I hadn't felt joy like that in years. I hadn't felt pleasure like that in sex. I hadn't felt that in my body. And I was just like, oh my God, there's something there. But I still wasn't fully convinced.
No, I know.
I wasn't fully convinced.
You would tell me, once Echo, my dog, dies, can't promise how long I'll stay after that.
Yeah. And thank you so much for holding the space for a friend to say that, because that's fucking a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I, of course, don't ever want you to be gone. But I wouldn't love you less if you were. But I'm still very thankful.
When I go, it won't be because of that.
Hopefully
I fully emerge on the other side.
Hopefully it's because not because I'm a bad driver on our vacation.
You never know what could happen.
Yeah.
But that brings up my what I've been processing in therapy, and I'm almost graduated from therapy. I've been in therapy for a year because I started, maybe a little bit less than a year, but I started with my new job going to see a wonderful therapist who my coworker recommended to me. Specifically, she recommended this therapist after hearing me rant about capitalism a couple of times, and she was like, you need this therapist, which is true. This therapist recognized from our first session there are so many things that cannot be solved because of the world that we live in. Mm-hmm. And so, how do we work on the self piece? How do we work on the self and community piece? How do we work on the things that you can control while realizing that there is a point in which you can't fix the rest?
Mm-hmm. And that the rest does intrude upon your ability to work on yourself.
Yes. So just help in existing in this world.
Yeah, I remember just early on when I was just thinking about where you were, how do you work on yourself, and you had a terrible living situation, a terrible work situation, and those were two things were dominating your day, and you had to bike to work and your back was killing you.
Right.
So
Thank you. You brought up some of the most important parts of my little list of how not to die is to get into a living situation that is safe.
Well, I was like, which of these things is, like, we can't fix all of them. What is the one thing that can create space? And I realized how much of my own depression, I can only speak to my own experience, happened when I was living around other people.
Yes. 100%.
If I could get that space, then I felt like that gave me some of the room to work on a lot of other stuff.
I have had so many aggressive male roommates that made me feel either unwelcome or at times unsafe in my space. And I had other roommates that just made it so that I knew that if I expressed myself and if I did things the way I felt called to do and wasn't harming anyone, wasn't causing any what I thought were issues, there would be payback later. There would be something.
And of course, it was really hard to think, how are you going to get that space in a place where everything was so expensive? So, like, it could feel like an unsolvable problem at times because and for a lot of people, it is an unsolvable problem. Of course, a lot of times people don't imagine the ways they can get out of shitty relationships or out of shitty living situations, or that there are people who will support you. Like, it's not really as bad as that we're all completely on our own. There are people who want to help, who are there.
Yes, the world is not as bad as it seems, and yet
it's worse.
It feels like it is the worst it could ever be.
Right, and for some people it really is the worst it really ever be.
And so that's the most accurate part of this. Yes, I had the experiences. I opened myself up to dance. I found a beautiful friend. But for real, guys, what helped me so much to get to the point where I'm at now is getting a 1-bedroom apartment, because I happened to call and leave a message that I never thought would get returned for a complex that a wonderful woman was working at, who was really dedicated to helping people get housing. And she called me when I was thinking there were no options, when I was really getting to the climax of despair at my last housing situation before this. And she says, come down and check out this 1-bedroom apartment today. I can get you signing paperwork. You can get it. That really is the thing. And so for that, I'm incredibly lucky. And my actionable advice on that, which sounds annoying to even say, is see what your capacity is. And if it is to just send one email regarding a thing that you're trying to bring about in your life, like in a week, in a month, just send one email. It can't hurt. I really had a hard time calling any of these apartment complexes, and I was anxious calling. And I remember that being the one where I was like, this definitely isn't going to bring anything about. I'm not even going to do it. And then I just did it. And that's the reason that I got so much better.
It's kind of funny that we're talking about all these heavy things, but the moral of this is your email still amounts to something. Use your email. Don't just text, don't call. Use your email. Be a Luddite. It works. It gets Dan space for Stop Making Sense. It makes friends like Clara, and it provided you housing. Yes. Email works.
Yes.
That's our anarchist message of the day. No, we don't. Who knows? But yeah, actually, I think what you're really saying is do something you don't think is necessarily possible and go for it.
Or if you can't do that, try to really hold on to anything at all that happens that gives you any hope. If something small happens that gives you a feeling like, oh, other good things might be possible, write it down. Like, cover your room in it. Because specifically when I was really depressed, I felt incapable of remembering anything that happened that was positive. So I would have to, like, write it on my hand and then look down and remember that happened. Just hold on to whatever you can, because your brain is not necessarily lying to you, but it is helping you to focus on things that are perhaps going to make the situation more bleak.
Whatever it is that works for you. I think for me, when I really think about it, it wasn't me being able to think all day about it and figure it out. My brain had an idea of what would help me since I was young. Learn how to love yourself, learn how to live with yourself. None of that felt true in my body, even though I knew rationally that made sense for me. So what made it stick in my body was just changing the way I moved. Mm-hmm. So I am always like, I don't know what to tell you. You already know what's wrong with you. We can talk and talk and talk.
Stop looking for gurus.
Dance, change your movement, change your habits, and that's it. And I don't know if that will work.
Do the opposite of what we did.
Yeah, I don't know what will work, but do something that shifts something. Because whatever's happening now isn't working. And going for some other crutch, a lot of people turn to alcohol, drugs. I mean, that works for you, but I can't see how that's going to change your situation. But if you change something, it doesn't always make your circumstances better, but how it is you live in your circumstances.
There was a lot. I actually spent the majority of my time from 21 to 23 just sitting silently with myself, which can be a recipe for disaster. Do not take that one, and write it down and say, I have to do this. But what I mean is, a problem would arise, and I would let it be there. Mm-hmm. Thoughts would come into my mind, and I would just observe them. Mm-hmm. I would look at myself as if I was from outside of myself, thinking of how we move in viewpoints. It's like, what is this creature?
Episode.
What is this creature, this being, this entity doing? What is her experience? I had to zoom out because it's too much inside. It's too much. So take a step back if you can and observe yourself thinking and having these thoughts. And if you can, try not to rush yourself coming to a conclusion.
And the other thing is, I would not necessarily expect a linear path towards happiness. It'll be up and down, up and down, up and down.
It does not exist.
You think things are getting better and something
I actually don't know
if
anything's linear. I question that.
Lines. Are there lines?
Right.
Do lines exist? Next episode. No, but the idea is, for me, depression was almost a habit. Like, it was a cycle that came almost habitually. It's not a habit that, like smoking, I didn't know when it was going to happen. It wasn't something I chose, but it came on my body habitually. Yeah. And so when you're breaking whatever that is, it doesn't mean that your body doesn't come back into old patterns, old molds. And so I just found over time that the cycles like this, my ups were still here, but the lower ebbs of them, if you're watching, you can see my things are, a little higher up, and they didn't go down very far, where before it was like, whoa, my highs stayed pretty high, but my lows did not go back very low. So it's not like I moderated my highs down either.
Yeah.
My highs stayed really high, but my lows weren't as low, and now I worry that I don't have too many, like, I get something upsets me and it just doesn't stick like it should stick longer. I've lost my capacity for grief and sadness. I sometimes worry about. I've gone too far the other way. I need a little more oscillation.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and for me, really, to emphasize this, I have been generally getting better ever since the start of the upwards journey that I talked about. But it is only just in the past several months that I have reached these self and community created highs.
And she'd be high forever if it weren't for fucking men. You're the only thing holding her back, men. No, that's not.
That's kind of true. I think the last man I dated was holding my happiness back quite a bit.
He might argue.
And I figured it out. Hoorah. There's no easy answers. And to finish my thought that I started a long time ago, years ago now, I feel like, was just that the most recent thing I've been working with my therapist on, which seems like a tiny little silly issue because I've worked through all of these momentous things, and then you just have the little guys floating around that are just like, hey, like, pay attention to me. Me anthropomorphizing my weird thoughts.
Andropomorphizing even. These little guys. Look at me, Aly. Look at me. Fuck me, Aly.
Anthropomorphizing has to come into the title somehow or the description of this episode. But anyway, I have a lot of uninvited, what's the official word? The intrusive thoughts. Intrusive. I have a lot of intrusive thoughts. I have a lot of intrusive thoughts now about, take a drink every time I say intrusive thoughts, about my dog or my dad dying in horrible, visceral ways. I'll be having a beautiful little moment with Echo, and then I just picture her. I won't say, but yes, it comes into my mind, and I think, oh my God, why would I think that? What is that? I must be bad because I have this thought. And of course, that's not true. We have so many thoughts that come through our minds that aren't even ours. We are just processing information, and sometimes that comes out in weird ways. Similar thing with my dad. I'm always worried that he's going to get in an accident doing his handyman work and get severely injured. And I'll see that happen. And my mom, when I was a kid, would be like, that's black magic and you're going to make it happen. So I still have a little bit of that of like, oh, am I going to make that happen because I thought about it? Putting too much weight on thoughts. But just processing that with my therapist, it's like, well, we can't account for the atrocities that could happen. And the fact that I'm being able to think about this now is showing that I really have gone through the space of being consumed with this question, consumed of this little thing in the back of your mind that's a much darker anthropomorphized voice, to the point where I actually want to be here. And so I want the beings that I love to also be here. And this fear that I'm feeling about them maybe not someday is a sign that I have so much love in my life. So there's no answer for that. There are no answers for any of this except to stay with the process. I think that's my final kernel, is to stay with the process, because it's like, I love my dog more than anything in the world. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I don't want harm to come to her. But it will. Harm will come to all of us. And when that happens, I will be present for that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's this. This is life and death. We can't answer what makes someone's life the best life, the worst life, the life that will go on, the thing that will fix everything. And we should stop trying. And I guess that's our anarchist message right there, right? It's this idea that we are in process and relationship with each other. And if we're trying to impose something more onto it than just what we have, then that's often adding a whole layer of problem we don't need that makes things that much harder.
Absolutely. And what we're doing right now, I also thought about another thing that helped me, which was young women talking about their experiences and similar feelings to me on the internet, on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I watched so many. I think I probably watched hundreds of YouTube videos of women talking about their experiences growing up with different mental health diagnoses and different things that I resonated with. And that really helped keep me alive too. And so here I am, not with the expectation that it would ever have that much weight for somebody else, but just as an offering, I guess it's not redemption because I wasn't doing anything wrong, but my full circle moment.
You're not a man, so you don't get
I don't need it.
Right, you don't have to, you don't fail the way we do just by being men.
Jim, you just cured every problem that I have by saying that.
Fantastic.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I was just wondering, do you think this is our best episode? You always say it's our best.
No. I don't think it is.
I think it's a really good one, actually.
Maybe if I don't think it is, then it is. You know.
I like when things feel real and emotional and and people can connect, and I don't care if they've learned anything. Like our anarchist episode, so much good 2 hours of history episode.
We proved that we could be factual. We proved that.
I'm a man. I don't got to prove that. And the last episode we did some beautiful artistic stuff, but this episode we were just us and real, and I don't know if there's any new information in it or not, and I don't care because I feel connected, and I feel like that. Hopefully, that comes across to people. So I like this episode a lot. I think I'm a little scared whether it's actually recording, but we'll see. If not, we had a good conversation.
If not, it was all worth it.
We now have closing credits, but some people only listen to the audio version of this, so we should tell them how to reach us.
You tell them. I can't even remember words.
Well, we did mention the website earlier, bozemanantifadance.org. We are on Facebook, believe it or not, facebook.com/BozemanAntifa. We're on Instagram @BozemanAntifa, and you can email us.
Please email us.
The
importance of email has been stressed several times.
Shown how it changes everything. BozemanAntifa@gmail.com. We're going to be dancing in California next week, but you may be listening to us years from the time we recorded it. So find us. We'd love to dance with you. Maybe we don't even live in Bozeman at this point. Who knows?
Oh God, I hope that is true.
So we might be anywhere. Just reach us. The email probably will still work because these things last forever in my life. Like I have websites I haven't updated in 15 years that are still on the web.
Now that's a new little dream I can think about. Where could I live? Now that I have chosen to live, where could I do it?
We're already thinking about the dreaming out loud of the little things that we might try to do over the years.
But I still need to give myself permission to keep dreaming. Because it feels silly. It feels, like...
But next week we'll be in Joshua Tree National Park. Yeah. And in Los Angeles, we're going to go see Starfucker.
Mm-hmm. Not an ad for Starfucker. They were just one of the groups that was playing.
And not an anti-ad.
No.
Unless they Unless you tell us why that should, and then hopefully we can't get our tickets
Change our neutral minds about Starfucker.
Yeah. But we should have fun connecting with nature.
Oh, yeah.
That could be another topic.
I'm going to get all up in there. And it's going to get all up in
that
me.
actually would be a topic I could go on
It
about.
is all up in me right now because we're in nature.
Raccoon?
Yeah. No, never mind. I was going to say go fuck a raccoon. Don't do that. It's a reference to Jim's improv.
You can't. I don't think a raccoon can consent to that.
We don't support
non-consent.
animal husbandry. That's just getting animals to mate with each other.
I'm not sure I support that either, but. All right, we should probably end it, huh?
Scene!
The police don't protect you. The government doesn't serve you. Change isn't made in a ballot box. You better get together with the people in your neighborhood and learn how to save yourselves.